Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. It's good to be with you this week. This is the week of our holiday of Thanksgiving. This is the week when people, well, at least slow down their thinking about Christmas and think about Thanksgiving. And it's a special holiday. I'm so sorry that we tend to jump over it so fast in the excitement of Christmas, but okay, that's the way it is, and I'm not going to change it. But I am going to talk about being thankful this week. And I hope that you'll find a few things that maybe you haven't thought of before. Today, I want to read to you from Psalm 118, verses 1 and 2. Uh, and Psalm 118 echoes the words in Psalm 107. So the first part of these two Psalms, essentially the same thing. So Psalm 118 says this, verse 1 and verse 2. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithfulness and love endures forever. Let all Israel repeat, his faithfulness and love endures forever. Well, this psalm, of course, was written a long time ago, long time before you and I were ever thought of, a long time before anybody in that day would have believed that this day would come. And in that day, people didn't think that they got what they had because of their own ingenuity and work ethic. At least not like they did today or do today. You and I are surrounded by all kinds of imagery and all kinds of exposure that simply says if we work hard, we can get it done and we'll be prosperous. But yet the world is full of examples where people work hard, harder than you and I would ever think of working, and they don't prosper. It's really amazing the difference between us here in the United States and those in what are known as the two-thirds world countries, the countries where two-thirds of the world's population lives. But this isn't a topic about that. This is a topic about giving thanks. And it says here, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. Now, when everything's going right, it's easy to think that God's good. When everything seems to be wonderful, it's easy to think that God is good. But yet in our lives, everything doesn't go as we expected all the time. In fact, sometimes it goes in a very ugly, disgusting, worrisome direction. And in those times, it's hard to see that God is good. And I understand that. I've been there. I can't say that I ever thought that God wasn't good, but I can tell you how hard it is to live in those moments when tragedy and disappointment and heartbreak and loss is so much a part of our lives. And some of you listening today may be exactly in that place. Well, for those of you who are, and those of you who have been, and maybe even those of you who one day might or will be, let me suggest that God doesn't change. Our circumstances change, our attitude changes, but God doesn't. And here it says, give thanks to the God, for he is good. His faithfulness and love endures forever. You see, this life is but a blimp on the path of eternity. Think about it. Just go drive by a cemetery. How many people's lives were lived by those people who are now only known by a date or maybe a little phrase. A whole magnitude of events and eating and food and laughing and playing and relationship were all lived by those people who now lie in a cemetery. And one day you and I will be in the same spot. I know that doesn't sound exciting, but what's exciting is that that is nothing compared to eternity, which has no beginning and has no end. And God lives in eternity, and He invites us to live in that same place. So, whatever happens today, as huge as it might seem, is not necessarily what's going to happen for all time. Recognizing that God is the source of everything we have is critical to understanding this passage that says He is good and His faithfulness and love endures forever. You see, once we figure it out up here, that we're not really nearly as important as we think we are, nor are we nearly as as equipped and powerful and gifted as we think we are. Once we get it up in our head that there is a God who is infinitely bigger than you or I, then we can begin to see His goodness. Just a quick story here. About 17 years ago, I lost use of my left arm. It's a complicated story, but it had to do with encrusted bone in my three of my neck vertebrae that they had to, as they said, clean it out. And they didn't think I'd ever get use of my arm again. But I did. It took a long time. And for most people, they couldn't tell that there was something had been wrong with it. And then 3 years ago, or 3 years ago almost, I fell and tore my rotator cuff in the same arm. Now this time it didn't quite get all back. I'm amazed that I'm still getting more and more use of it, which also wasn't projected. But even though I can't do everything that I once did with my left arm, and it is frustrating, go to hang a picture up high, and you need two arms to do that. You need one to hold the nail, one to hit it with the hammer, and that's tough for me. But I can do a lot of things with my arm, and I am so thankful that God has given me what He did give me in use of my arm. Well, you think about your life. What is it about your life that God has given you? Even if it's something small. See, small, I can do it. Even if it's small, God gave it to you. And He wants to give you more each and every day. But it starts up here by saying, there is a God who's much bigger than I am. Well, think about it. I'll be back tomorrow with some other thoughts this week. If you have a need or a concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can, as fast as we can, to help meet your need. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a great week. Take care of yourself. I'll talk to you again.